My favorite 10 seconds of the day. You may have already heard me say in other podcasts, or read in one of my articles or books, that possibly the only thing a teacher has to do every day is say hello in some fashion to every student who walks into your classroom. It's a simple, utterly human action. That brief moment contributes to creating a space in which students can engage in learning because they trust us a little bit more. Kids and adults are alike in this way. If you don't trust someone, you aren't going to share your thoughts with them. And just because some college or state department of education has given me a license to stand in front of children does not mean they automatically trust me. I have to earn their trust so that they can let me teach them deeply. Frankly, saying hello to them each day makes me feel good too. Reminds me that I am not a faceless cog in the machinery of schools. I think we all need to grab those pure and simple human-to-human opportunities to do this work year after year. Saying hello is good for the kids, it's good for me, excellent all around. Here's another really good activity that helps me and the students over and over every day, and also served me well when I was a principal. It's so simple to do, but it runs counter to a very embedded, common, and rarely meaningful activity we do in schools. I'm sure you have all experienced a teacher, or two, or a dozen in your years as a student who did this. The teacher has just finished giving directions, or completed a lecture, or in some fashion loaded the kids up with stuff, and then says this, often punctuated by a hand clap. Any questions? No, okay, great. And the class moves on. I watched myself on a video ask this question to my class. In this case, when I was finishing up a lesson and the bell rang, I asked, any questions? And in literally less than 2 seconds, my eyes swept the room, I clapped my hands and said, okay, get going. I had never known how little time I had actually given the students to process and respond to my inquiry. I was clearly stressed, trying to fit all of the requirements into my limited day. I may have asked if there were any questions, but none of my behavior communicated that I actually wanted anyone to respond. I was clearly delighted that no one spoke up. In the less than 2 seconds I gave my students to respond to that classic prompt, any questions? They needed a set of advanced and well-honed skills to slow me down in order to actually answer. They needed the self-awareness to realize in just 2 seconds that they had a concern that would weigh on them cognitively and emotionally if not addressed. They needed the commitment to their goals that required them to get more information from me in that moment. They needed the strength of self-advocacy to interrupt everyone's rushing forward. They needed the ability to read my mood. They needed the capacity to know whether they could express their needs respectfully and articulately with only 2 seconds of preparation. And they had to weigh their actions against the greater good of their peers, whether their question might help out others or was really a selfish activity good only for their own needs in the moment. The overwhelming majority of students can't do all that processing in 2 seconds. Few adults can. My class moved on. In the video, it was clear that I was happy to stay on my schedule, and I have no doubt many students could see I was fine with the fact that no one had delayed the group. So I urge you not to ask any questions and then give your kids only 2 seconds to respond. Because instead, you can do this wonderful 10-second activity that is an oasis of calm and appreciation and learning. Try this. After you ask if there are any questions, count to 10. Literally, in your head, count to 10. Here's what I would do during that time. And I did this at faculty meetings as a principal. I take a slow breath, scan the room, smile at a couple of friendly faces, and get a smile back, which feels great. I feel the mood of the whole room. And all of us just breathe a couple of times. School days are so hectic, so jam-packed, so filled with requirements and responsibilities and evaluations that I came to love those 10 seconds. They were my favorite time of the day. At some point, I would tell my class that I really meant it when I said, any questions? And I gave them those 10 seconds so they could figure out if they had a question they really needed to ask me. And if no one had a question, it would just be a good 10 seconds to hang out together. Innumerable times since I've adopted this practice, after several seconds, a student would say, Mr. B, I do have a question. Or a faculty member would say, yeah, I actually have a question. The students and the adults need the time to figure out if the question is a good one for that moment. Those 10 seconds were very well used, even in silence. And I learned from those 10 seconds that if I asked, any questions? I really had to mean it. And that made my students trust me a little bit more. And like saying hello every day to every student, we can build bit by bit a class culture that reminds us that we are not faceless cogs in the machinery of education, but a group of humans who share this time and space together every day and need each other to be successful and to simply feel good. And please, if you have any questions about this podcast, any questions, write to me, because I really mean it when I say, any questions?